All right, gang. Welcome to the Change of Shift podcast. I'm your host, Sean. For those of you who have been tuning in for the past 5 episodes, you'll happen to notice that I'm on my own. It's okay. Nothing's wrong. It's called an experiment. My wonderful co-host, Emily, is not with us tonight. More than likely out of choice. Joking. When we're not doing the podcast, we're living our lives and also working our full-time jobs. And I believe Emily was out working her full-time job today. So tonight's episode is spontaneous as it gets. I'm going to continue on with the recent episode topic of the advice column, hashtag Ask the NP. This is going to be a short one. So we're going to experiment with solo podcasts, some with me, some with Emily. We're going to continue doing the interviews with both of us, but we thought we would try and churn out a little bit more content by doing some solo stuff. For those of you who happen to drop in while this is recording, I've locked the seat because I'm recording a podcast. You're more than welcome to hang out and listen. So, title of the episode is Advice for the Nurse Wanting to Go to NP School. I had posted a update on Twitter and Facebook a couple of days ago, and the tweet was something along the lines of, we have already a couple people coming in, which is nice. The tweet was hashtag Ask the NP. And it was in regards to, trying to remember the topic now. That's horrible. Is that I had said, nurses, if you're not early, you're late. And that prompted a question from a fellow nurse out on Twitter. The Twitter handle was sjeanlove. It looks like she's an ICU nurse. And she asked the question, any advice for a nurse wanting to go to NP school? This is a very broad topic and broad subject, but I chose to answer it quickly and curtly. Wanted to give her some feedback before the night got away from me. And my response to her was, don't wait for the right time to start. Start now, period. I thought I'd elaborate a little bit on my answer. This advice for anybody out there who's a nurse, who's interested in becoming an NP, interested in entering the nurse practitioner realm to become an advanced practice nurse. A lot of programs are still out there, masters. Many of the programs are transitioning to the DNP, or the Doctorate of Nursing Practice. I, for one, graduated with my master's in nursing, so they're still in existence at that point. So what's the best piece of advice that I could give was to not wait to start. I was just as guilty as the next person that when I was at the bedside, I kept talking about going back to school. For those of you that don't remember or don't know, I started my nursing profession as a bedside nurse, and I graduated from a diploma program. I don't think diploma programs they're falling to the wayside. There's not a lot of them left out there. Most nursing programs are moving towards the baccalaureate route, which is the 4-year degree where you get your bachelor's in nursing, which I think we've discussed briefly in a couple other episodes. That is in response to the IOM's statement about nurses utilizing their education to their fullest. So many nurses are either going back to school or they're starting their nursing profession. They're starting their career as bachelor's prepared nurses, which is awesome. But getting your bachelor's in nursing is not the final step. You can go back and advance your career. You can become an educator. You can become a nurse anesthetist. You can become a nurse midwife. You can become a nurse leader. And of course, like myself, you can become a nurse practitioner. I urge you not to wait because there's options out there. Of course, the easiest option is take out the loan and start taking classes, enroll into a program, and just start moving. That's if you have a program that's local for you. You may not have a program that is down the street or in your local community. So you might have to start getting a little creative. You might have to start looking on the internet for purely online programs. I know that there are many, many out there. And then there are cohort programs where you can do part of your program online and part of your program face-to-face in the traditional classroom setting. There are also programs that utilize the, what do they call it, WebEx, which is the video chat or the video conferencing ability of being in the classroom from your desk. You log into the computer and you're actually in the classroom on a monitor in the live classroom. And the program that I was in actually had offered that for students that could not make it into town. I was one of those crazy commuters. And I was fortunate enough to have tried a couple online classes when I did my bachelor's in nursing, and I realized very early on that online learning was not for me. I needed to be in the classroom. I needed the interaction. I needed the real-time learning. Not that there's anything wrong with online learning. It's just that you find out a lot about yourself when you go to school, as much as I've gone to school. So I learned the hard way that online learning was too much for me. It was not ideal, and that the best course for me was to actually commute. And thankfully, I had a program that was at least a driving distance for me. If you consider an hour and a half drive one way a tolerable commute, because I did that for almost 4 years. So the take-home message here is that the best piece of advice I can give for anyone who is a bedside nurse, who is practicing as a nurse currently, who you only even have to have your bachelor's. You have passed the NCLEX, you're working out there in the workforce, and you're interested in advancing your education in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't actually have to be as a nurse practitioner. I encourage you to figure out a way to start, and start now. I would get your butt moving so that it's now September, and at the time of this recording, so you could potentially start classes in the springtime in January. There are a bazillion reasons not to start, but ultimately the only reason you should start is because it's not going to get done any faster by waiting. You can enroll in a program and just take one class. You can pay for one class, as you go, or save. If you really needed to wait one semester, you wait a semester or the summer, and then starting in the fall. So you start saving money now so that you can pay for that class outright, and you chip away one piece at a time. You take one class at a time. If you get on a waiting list, you start taking the gen ed courses. If you get denied, then you look for other programs that will accept you. There's a couple nurses out there on the internet that we've met that are having this very problem. And I say to you, and I say to them, figure it out, find a way, get around that obstacle, and start. We're going to segue into a couple off topics because they are on my brain, they're on my mind. For those of you that have been following me on the internets for a while, you know that my relationship online changed recently, and I wanted to continue my online presence. So I went from representing someone else to going out on my own. And going out on my own, I meant that I started doing my own personal blogging more now than ever. So instead of blogging for someone else, I started producing more posts on my own personal site, which is mystrongmedicine.com. I've had that for a long time, 6 years, 7 years, probably as long as I've been blogging or more. So I started frequently blogging on my own personal site again. There was a rose, there was a thorn under my nail. There was this splinter that was eating at me that I just knew I wanted to try something else. And I've always been intrigued by podcasts. So I decided to jump into the deep end head first. And I say head first because I didn't land well. And I started my own podcast. It was called the Nurse Niche Podcast. The Nurse Niche was the best name I could come up with. It was a shotgun start. I literally thought of it, and within a week's time, it was up and running, and I had posts. And I was recording all my posts from my iPhone. If you go and look for the Nurse Niche, Niche, the Nurse Niche Podcast, you can find, I think I had 9 episodes there, nine or so. This is going to probably be the last of the recordings for the Nurse Niche. I'm making this a universal recording for not only my new love for the Change of Shift and the Change of Shift podcast and the venture that my partner and I are undertaking, my co-host Emily. I'm going to consolidate my online presence to the Change of Shift. So I can't do this podcast, do the Change of Shift blog, and worry about the Nurse Niche podcast. So as of now, this recording, when it's finished, it will get uploaded to the Nurse Niche podcast, and that will be the final episode. And I will encourage you to come find me here on the Change of Shift podcast. Yes, as of now, we are not on iTunes, but that will change shortly. We are working on syndicating our presentation, still working out the kinks. As experience would tell you, I do everything kind of shotgun, and the debacle of The View kind of catapulted us into this role and this gig. We'll call it a gig. And then compiled with the fact that the Blab platform exploded. So Blab plus The View equals shotgun start of the Change of Shift. And it's been great so far. But I need to focus my efforts on this passion of mine, which is the Change of Shift. Recruiting a lot of help. Emily has been invaluable. Her and I see eye to eye on 99% of the topics that we talk about. Her and I have been good friends virtually online for almost a decade. Only have met in person once, yet, we are 2 peas in a pod. So her being the co-host of this show was absolutely perfect. So it's time for me to move forward and to kind of wash away my previous presence. And one of those previous roles was the Nurse Niche podcast. So the Nurse Niche podcast was touted as a podcast where I discussed any and all topics related to nursing across the spectrum of the profession. Everything from nursing school, professional challenges, and career advice. If it involved a nurse, it was part of my podcast. And those words couldn't be more true for the current podcast and the current venture that we are undertaking here on the Change of Shift. So it's not a difficult switch transition. It's actually quite smooth and quite expected. So one last time, as of this last podcast, this current recording will be the last episode of the Nurse Niche podcast. Any further recordings, if you're interested in what I have to say, interested in what my partner has to say, or interested in what we have to say together, you can come join us on the Change of Shift podcast by looking us up on thechangeofshift.com. Next subject. Going with the social media presence that I have online. And I'm calling it a presence because just out of sheer luck, I've been doing this long enough that I have a small following. And it's due to my blogging and due to the videos that I produced over the past year from my previous relationship, employer, however you want to call it. That is absolved. That is gone. So I took it upon myself to continue doing the YouTube show. Of course, it was named The Sean Dent Show. It was mild, meager, but I kept it up because I still had a passion for it. I was getting used to being in front of the camera. Case in point, here we are on Blab, and I'm doing a podcast in front of my video camera. But once again, can't be splayed out throughout the internet doing 6 different things at once. So I will continue doing videos, but I believe the videos are going to be going from video camera to YouTube to Change of Shift on Blab, and then uploading it to the Change of Shift podcast and the Change of Shift website. It'll still go to YouTube. It'll still be a video. It's just going to have a little different feel to it. I'm still going to talk about all the topics that I've normally talk about. I believe I recorded a couple episodes, and I may upload those episodes to the Change of Shift YouTube channel, just for thoroughness, for completion. I think I recorded 3 episodes that haven't been published yet. So I think it's time to consolidate what I've been doing and focus all my efforts into one area, which, in my humble opinion, is amazing. The potential that this show has, the potential that our website has, is just, my cup runneth over. There's so many things that we want to talk about. There's so many people we want to interview. There's so many avenues that we want to tap into. And ultimately, we want to share all this information with the nurses in the world. It's going to take a little time trying to get our footing. It's why I'm starting to do some of these solo podcasts. And I know that my partner and my co-host, Emily, will also be doing some of the same thing. I'll probably do a lot of podcasts that focus on the advice column, Ask the NP. I may do some random off topics, or hint, 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 I could take some suggestions from the fans who are on the Change of Shift website, who subscribe to this podcast, who are fans on our Facebook page, who are followers on our Google Plus page, or fans on the YouTube channel. We're all over the place. The Change of Shift is not going anywhere, and neither am I. So if there is something that you want me to talk about, or you want us to talk about, drop us a line, send us a message on Twitter, send us an email at thechangeofshift@gmail.com. You can find all of our contact information on thechangeofshift.com. Or just find us on Facebook and send us a message. Throw us a tweet on Twitter. Doesn't matter. The bottom line is we're going to produce more content than what's been going on. We're going to try and get you some content. Lofty goal of 5 per week. We'll see how that goes. The challenge that we have is that both Emma and I work full-time jobs, and we work shift work. So it's unpredictable. Every month the shifts are different. The days are different. So we're going to do our best to try and keep it organized in some way, shape, or form for you, the fans, to be able to find the content easily. I'm all about random, and my partner is all about categorizing and making sense of my randomness. So that's going to be a wonderful thing, because that is my weakness, is that I just am spontaneous. I just want to drop, pick up the mic, say what I got to say, drop the mic and leave. And probably going to have to be just a little bit more organized, a little bit more focused. So Emily's going to have to keep the reins on me when it comes to that, because I just have so much to say and I just want to keep talking. I could spend hours just in one podcast talking about one subject. I got 10 years of experience swirling around in this noggin. I have 3 degrees swirling around in this noggin. I have life experiences prior to nursing in this noggin. I have travel experience as a nurse. And I've been lucky enough as an ICU nurse to work in many different facilities. In my former life, I was a manager. So I've done a little bit of everything. Some would call that not having direction. I like to call it being diverse. So I'm going to go with I'm being diverse. You can find me on the internet everywhere. Just type in my name, Sean Dent, and Google me. Hopefully, over the next several weeks to months, you're going to find my name, and it's going to be associated with the Change of Shift. And I'm not saying, you know what, I'm going to correct myself. It's not hopefully. It is going to happen. The Change of Shift is going to grow with the help of a lot of friends, with the help of my co-host, and with the help of all you fans. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to know what is bothering you about the nursing profession. Are you interested in the nursing profession? What do you want to know? Are you a nursing school student? What do you want to know? Are you a bedside nurse? What do you want to know? Are you going back to school? What do you want to know? The bottom line is I'm ready to share as much information as I can with you. This episode was slightly random. It was the changing of the guard, closing a couple doors, as well as touching on the advice column that we have started, Ask the NP. Talked a little bit about what what would be my piece of advice for a nurse wanting to go back to NP school. Stay tuned. Tomorrow night, we have another episode of the Change of Shift podcast. We're going to be interviewing a fellow veteran nurse. Her name is Lisa Ford. She is a postpartum nurse. She's been a bedside nurse. She's been a nurse manager. She's a new mom to a toddler. And she has gone back to school to acquire her master's degree. And like myself and my co-host, she started out as just RN after her name. I believe Emily got her associates. I got my diploma. And if I'm not mistaken, our guest tomorrow night also started with her diploma. So she is actually going into a bridge program, the RN to MSM program online. So I'm going to be interested to hear what she has to say regarding that. We might talk a little bit about the stethoscope incident, and maybe, just maybe, we might even talk about vaccinations. As always, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending your valuable time by hanging out with me. I'm going to drop a couple links here just so that you know where to find us, how to find us. This has been random, but not random. I'm thankful that I have the opportunity to keep moving forward with this. Let me know how we're doing. Drop me a line. Send me a comment. Let us know how the Change of Shift is doing. Let me know how this solo podcasting is, good or bad. So let me know. And as always, most importantly, check your own pulse first.